Hi, my name's Anna Stone, and I had a near-death experience November 8th, 2016, when I was 38 years old. Previously, before, in my former life, I was a research scientist. I worked for the government contract for Department of Defense and for DARPA. And analytically, like, there's nothing to any of this near-death stuff. Like, it's hogwash. It's like not scientific. It doesn't hold up under scientific scrutiny. So even though I was attracted to things like tarot and, like, I don't know, witchcraft, maybe like as a kid, I still never really believed in it wholeheartedly. I guess I dabbled, but I always, went back to science. And even though I had a lot of weird experiences growing up that some may call paranormal, I guess, I still managed to explain all that away with rationalizing it out. So I'm in a bad time in my life, like really bad. I was drinking and really being not the best person. And I was in a really toxic marriage. And I had this bleeding that started, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. And, it was like just my cycle was just going and going and going. And I didn't know why, like what was going on. And actually, the day this happened, I had joked to my family that I was like bleeding to death. Then the next thing I remember is I'm in the hospital and I'm told that I fainted, I guess, and that I was losing blood pretty rapidly. And I guess I had a ectopic pregnancy that had ruptured. And I lost at this point nearly half of the blood volume in my body. Then I started to feel this sensation that I actually, it's hard to describe, but it was this extreme panic of something being very wrong, very, very wrong. And this feeling of like intense, just like I was going to explode. Like I could feel like all the cells in my body like doing something, and it was not comfortable at all. And the minute it was like unbearable is when it was just poof, and I'm not in my body anymore. And I like go up to the ceiling, just like a balloon, I guess. And I realized like, oh crap, I'm not in my body anymore. And I could see myself like after I was out of my body. That's when I heard the machine do the flatline sound. And then I'm watching the people in the room come and try to resuscitate me. And I had no attachment to it at all. Like I had my one thought, like conscious thought at that moment was, suck. That was it. It was really flat affect too. Like there was no real emotion behind it. It was just like, well. And then at that moment, I realized, oh crap, my snarky personality is still intact. Like, and I'm out of my body. So I'm still me. That's weird. I don't know what I was expecting. I'd never really pondered this before because, again, this shouldn't be possible. And I'm watching them work on me and stuff. And I'm hearing some of the comments that were a little upsetting. Like one of the doctors had commented on how in my records it had said that I had a former addiction to medication, that like, what do we expect? Like I was just, some drug addict, but I'd been off of those for 8 years at that point. So I was offended, highly offended. But I wasn't offended at the time. I was offended when I came back. Let me clarify that. But at some point I heard the flatlining and all of that. But then it was like the realization of my children, like, okay, where my kids are they going to be okay? And I was instantly taken to my oldest daughter, who happened to be in class 210 miles away at her college in Fresno. And I see her there in her desk taking an exam. And I just was like, okay, she's fine. And I was like, well, what about my little one? And she's taken right back to the hospital waiting room where I see my Lucy, who was barely 2 at the time. And she's playing Legos with Legos. And I'm like, okay, she's fine. And then I realized that if I'm looking to the right, I'm looking in the hospital. But if I glance to my left, I'm not in the hospital anymore. I'm somewhere else. I can't really describe where that somewhere else is, but it's not on Earth. Like this room, it's yellowish white, kind of, I guess it's a room. I don't really see walls to support that, but I just know it's a room. I don't see any tunnel. I don't see any dead relatives. I don't see any religious figures. I'm by myself, but I'm not by myself. It's like I could feel other things around me. And I realized a couple things. I realized that one, I'm enormous. Like I am everywhere and nowhere. Like at the same time, I realized I don't have a body. I don't have eyes. I don't have ears. I'm not in physical form anymore. I can see in 360-degree vision. Like I can see behind me, on side to side, above, below, just by thinking it, which was interesting. It didn't like freak me out. It was just fact. I'm in this room, I guess, and I just all of a sudden I look up, and now I look in front of me rather, and there's another person looked physical to me, like standing in front of me, and it was me though. It was very strange. It was like my physical self, but not quite. So it was looked like me, literally. I mean, it's like my twin, but so there's a little difference in features, a little difference in, hair or something, but it's me. And I'm very aware that this is a version of me. I knew that I was going to talk to me. I don't know how else to say that. And I stood there, or I'm there. I don't know. I'm not standing because I'm not in form body, but I'm there. And I get one message to me, like transmitted telepathically, and it's the word nope, NOPE. And that's something I would say, instead of saying no, I just say nope, in my regular life. That's how I speak. And I got that message, and I instantly knew that meant, no, I'm not staying and I'm going back. And that was what happened. I suddenly got all of my enormousness got focused into this one stream that went shooting back into my body via my navel or my belly button. And it hurt like really bad. Like it actually was physically painful. And at this point, I saw the tunnel. Like going back in is when I saw, I guess, a tunnel. It was just like, for me, I think I understand that it was focused back into my navel. So therefore, I had to be in like, a beam rather than being dispersed like I was previously. Like what I can say is that it felt like if someone was holding your head underwater and you were gonna drown, like, and you were right at that moment of opening your mouth and breathing in that, breath of water instead of air, but then they let go and you managed to pop up and breach the surface and gasp for like that air that you need so desperately. That's what happened. Like I shot up on the table and like gasped this like really loud and very shocking to everybody in the room gasp for air. That's what brought me back, was this, I guess it was the pain mixed with the lack of oxygen that, made me shoot up and awaken on the table. And I knew instantly what had happened. Like I knew I had died. I knew I had left my body. I was very upset with this because this shouldn't happen. This shouldn't be possible. It has to be my neurons like misfiring as I died, and it's all hallucination. So I start asking the staff, like, did you do this? Did you do that? Like, did you say something about my medical records and how I used to do, I had a problem with this medication? And they were just, well, first of all, they were like all in shock. They had stopped working on me and like we're doing like filling out some forms. And also I was still hooked up to the EKG monitor and there was no beep ahead of time to warn them that I was coming back. So I think it really shocked this one guy. He looked very concerned. Like he was kind of standing there frozen. And I asked the doctor again, I'm like, did you say this about me? And he was like, how could you have heard that? And so at that moment, it like sunk in that, oh crap. Because I was hoping they were going to be like, no, that has to be hallucination, lack of oxygen to the brain, whatever, but they validated that. That's when I started realizing like, oh crap, this is bad. This is what happened. I died and it was real. And I asked them how long since they had called time of death, and it had been just under 6 minutes. Not that long, but it definitely resulted in a lot of things changing in my life. And that one message I got from myself on the other side has like unraveled and become a lot of other messages for me that have also helped change the course of the direction of my life and everything. So after I got released from the hospital, I started really thinking to myself, like, how horrible that I wasn't more upset about my children. I hadn't yet realized the fact that when we're on the other side, we don't have negative emotions. So I hadn't gotten that yet. Like I hadn't figured that part out. So I was really beating myself up about how I hadn't really focused on like who was going to take care of my children, like, what was going to happen to them, the things that as a parent you would consider here while you're on earth, right? Later, I found out why I was like that is, well, because we don't have those emotions over there, but also because this had already been planned. This is something that I had already written out for myself because I had seen ahead of time that I might get off the rails a bit in my life. And this was a reset, like a karmic reset is kind of what I like to attribute it to. So I came back and I had this undeniable urge to do differently in my life. I can't really explain it. The first change I noticed was that I could no longer drink alcohol. And I mean, I literally physically could not drink it. So I'd had a problem with drinking. I had turned to alcohol to try to numb some inner trauma, pain that I have not resolved yet. And when I returned, the first thing I tried to do was drink a beer, and like I couldn't do it. It literally made me sick. I couldn't even swallow it. It went into my mouth and it just turned warm and foam and came nothing that was liquid to drink anymore. It was bizarre. My doctors, we don't have any clue why this would be a thing. This is not a side effect that we're aware of, but take it as a blessing, right? So I did. So I ended my literally the addiction to alcohol within 6 minutes. Oh, like literally in 6 minutes, it was over. And that's the end of it, thank God. But after that, it was like things started changing very rapidly and significantly. So I had pretty much no direction where I was going in my life. Like I'd been doing science, but it wasn't very fulfilling for me. And so all of a sudden I'm like, I need to be a teacher. And so within a couple months, I got a job teaching children that were troubled youth. And I found this to be super rewarding for me, and definitely felt much more in line with like what I'm supposed to be doing. And I also decided like, hey, I'm telling my students all the time that they need to make sure they go to college and finish their college degree, but I didn't even do that. So I need to go back to college and finish my undergrad, because I hadn't done that. I'd been hired out of college to work for the VA and UCLA, and they had like a partnership here in Los Angeles. And I was supposed to continue college, but I was too busy with work, and then life got in the way, and I just never finished it. So I went back, finished my undergrad, and then went on to my master's, finished that, and now I'm in a second master's and concurrent PhD program in a whole new line of study. Now I'm psychology and consciousness studies, which is completely different than science. Like definitely you can use science for it now with quantum physics and mechanics, but this is completely a different path than what I was doing before. And my whole thing has been about like being of service to other people. And it's helped me. Like I had a really traumatic childhood, like really bad, actually, like really heavy stuff that happened. And this event has triggered this need and desire and drive to heal that, and has led me down this path that's just become truly amazing for me and transformative by no little measure.